So you may see here, we will start from the value chain mapping first. So the value chain for services and lifestyle sector is different from the first two industries in the morning. So in the morning, we talked about the manufacturing process, right? We create products, but for the value chain of service and lifestyle, we start from raw materials to create products, and then the products will be used in the process in order to provide service to clients or customers. So that is related to consumer use and end of life. So I will start from face to face. So let's start from raw material supply. Involves rare earth materials, metals, and also in the food industry, food products that you use in order to provide as a service in the tourism sector, for example. And in terms of equipments, these equipments will be used, will be assembled so that it's delivered to the medical sector, and that leads to component manufacturing. And in the medium column, we have the distribution of products to users, be it in the data center or at the hospitals or in hotel chains in the tourism sector. So when it comes to resources, you can see that we use a lot of resources in the raw material supply phase, and then the resources that we use will reduce according to different phases as we progress until the end of life phase. So, and then at the end, we might get rid of the waste by going to landfill or incineration or end of life emissions, for example. So in terms of energy, we consume a lot of energy throughout the phases of the value chain, be it from using energy to draw raw materials, say, for example, from extracting materials from material mine, and as well as the digital group or sectors as well. And at the manufacturing phase, of course, you need equipments, you need servers, you need all these equipments involved for the data center or for medical services. Of course, it consumes a lot of energy here. And for the manufacturing, of course, you will produce a lot of waste. So when it comes to consumer use, of course, there is a high energy consumption by devices, in especially the data center sector, because you know that data center consumes a lot of energy, and also hospitals do consume a lot of energy too. So when we look at the inefficiencies of a linear value chain, there are three key agendas that we need to look at. The first one is the environmental impact when we use raw material, when we extract raw material from natural resources. And the second phase is the energy and emission intensive production processes. Because of course there is combustion, right? And then emissions that leads to the emission of toxic gases to the atmosphere. And the last one is, of course, devices that reach its end of life, or sometimes it's broken, it cannot be used or cannot be repaired. Of course, all these things will contribute to waste production, especially from the tourism sector or in the events organization sector. There is like there are waste created on the community, and also waste from data center industry, including electronic waste. And if it's the industry, hospital or medical industry, we also have medical waste. So these phase is called inefficiencies in a value chain. So from this image, what we are going to focus on, as I have said before, is the green data center is related to digital service. And so we are going to talk about waste management here and also renewable energy. So let's first look at circularity. So what are the topics or what are the issues that we need to look at in order to improve the situation related to linear inefficiencies? The first thing is to optimize resources. So starting from designing products or designing operational processes in order to optimize energy usage. And on top of optimizing energy consumption, we also look at the sources of energy. Are we using renewable energy? And also, we also look at maintenance as well, equipment maintenance. How do we make sure that we can extend the end of life, or are there any refurbishing processes where we can repair it and returning it to the process to make use of it again? And when it comes to data center, we talk about there are higher demands or higher usage of data centers. Of course, this is something that you need to look at, like the capacity of the data center. Can it accommodate the needs and the demands of more users? So if you look to the left-hand side, we can look at the recovery and reuse. We look at the waste generated. What can we do with it? Can we recover the materials? Can we bring it back into the process? Or can we turn it into raw materials? Or are there any ways we can manage bio-waste? And also looking at circular value chain, because they look at all these recovered waste. What can we do with it in order to turn it into the second or third generation production or manufacturing so that it can go back into the cycle?
So next hotspot will be green data centers. On green data centers, I need to give some background. Is what are the enablers driving the conversion of data centers? First of all, is the energy use, which is quite high for data centers, and so that's concerned about the carbon footprint. And there's also like a driving trend from the government sector, and I'm talking from the global perspective, that every country would like to see the PUE, or power usage effectiveness for data centers around the world. And this will be the new factor to regulate this industry, to have efficiency in energy. And on the business side, they also want to reduce the cost and have as low capital expenditure as possible. And some of you may know that the data centers from overseas may be limited by some regulations that the energy must be sourced from a renewable source only, and some places have the condition of it has to be renewable source 100%. And this industry has a very rapid growth also. And we can see that in Thailand, we have a lot of investment coming in to expand the capacity of green data centers for higher speed. Especially in Thailand, I think the cloud market has a forecast that by 2026, it should have the value of 700 million US dollars. In Thailand currently, we have the local operators and also the international operators. On the right-hand side, you will see that these are the key topics concerning green data centers. The first one is on the maintenance and prolong. Like how do we keep the functioning of the system After maintenance, you have the refurbishment so that they can be used again. And when it ends the shelf life, then they talk about reuse or redistributing in the secondary markets. And the last part is the recycle. Is when we recycle all the parts of the equipment. So you can see that the hierarchy starts from to stop the waste, and then at the end, when nothing else can be done, then they recycle. And I have a short clip video to show you for you to see the picture of green data centers. So from that video, we saw the overview that in Europe, the people in the data center industry, they join force together because in Europe, they have the policy to reduce the carbon footprint or what we know as European Green Deal. And this policy drives the people in the data center industry who use high energy to come up with initiative to do adaptation or increasing the energy efficiency, and they came up with goals and seek 100% use of renewable energy in their systems as opposed to fossil fuels. And certainly the data centers have to use a lot of water source to maintain the system. And so they have to do a lot of water conservation. And from what I have studied is that all of these resources, they try to reuse as much as possible and also maintain the systems and parts. And this higher purpose of this is the carbon neutrality. If we look at the global perspective, one of the key challenges in reaching the green data centers is the data efficiency, and this includes the architecture and also the design of the system that uses less energy. The cooling system also has to be more efficiency and the sources of renewable energy, because if they aim to use 100% of renewable energy, they need to have enough suppliers. In some countries, they also have the issues of the standards who would certify that this is the green data center. And not to mention all the technology and new innovation to design the green data centers with much efficiency as possible. And then the supply chain is to the reverse supply chain is to bring all of these materials and parts back to the upstream again, and they talk about the modular design, which is can be plug and play. Maybe they change only some parts and use the same in some others. Another issue is urban mining. The electronic waste still has valuable minerals. And if we use the new minerals from mining, then they try to reduce the mining activities, but then reusing these minerals from the waste. And on gap assessment in this hotspot in Thailand, from what our study showed, is that it is a new industry. The green data center is new, even though data centers are not. As I said, that the operator is already in the local ones in Thailand. So the gaps in green data centers are as following. On the policy level and process, the main thing is the advocacy of the new framework and policy, that what are the specifications for green data centers, what is defined as green. And the local data centers, some of them are not aware of green data center design framework. And for a business strategy, there is a lack of a business strategy to promote green data center design and implementation. And it is not quite connected to the energy management plans of the country. Another gap is the support for partnerships between each player and supply chain, how they can join force together to construct, operate, certify, or implement green data centers in Thailand. Technology innovation we mark in yellow because we have a lot of data centers in Thailand and it's been increasing in numbers, but in the long term, we have to think about the innovation and what innovation can exactly support green data center emerging. But we also see that there's a lot of growth in this industry. And now we'll look at the Mentimeter question, just like the previous sessions this morning. So the participants, please provide your feedback. So please scan the QR code. Or you can go to menti.com and use this code, this 8-digit code.
Okay. คำถามก็คือว่าอะไรที่
นะครับคำถามพูดถึงอุปสรรคนะครับเรื่องของการโปรโมท Green Data Center. Oh, the key obstacles for promoting green data centers in Thailand. And the leading one now is the insufficient policy support for design and construction of green data centers. This is the key obstacle. And the local data center promotion and to connect it with the energy management plans. We have only 4 respondents now. Any more feedback? Maybe we'll wait a little while.
เคเอ่อแน่ใจว่ามันค้างหรือเปล่า
So, is it frozen?
โอเค โอเคครับ ณ ตอนนี้มี
We have 4 respondents here, and so with the majority on the policy and the guidance to support green data center and the energy management plan with connection to data centers.
โอเค ทีนี้เนี่ยตัวกลยุทธ์ใน
And the strategy to promote the circularity investment for green data centers, we focus on 4 aspects. Just like this morning, it starts with the design for circularity to use renewable energy more and or using renewable energy as an offset, or what we call REC, renewable energy certificates, to offset the energy use. To provide the sources of renewable energy for the data center providers, because some companies are required to reach 100% of renewable energy. And this will support the financial mechanisms, for example, the tax rebates and also subsidizing schemes related to green data centers. And green data centers certainly require more investment than just conventional data center. Another thing is to develop the green data center practice guide. So these are the focal points under the design, and the desired outcome is we'll have more clean energy and more proportion of green data centers in Thailand. Under the pillar of rethink business model, we have to collaborate with financial institutes to facilitate financing green data centers. And we have to study what instruments are available across the financial institutes. Under collaboration, this is the partnership between the data centers and energy service company. And this might come in the form of trainings and partnership between the data centers and academic sector. The last pillar on the tech-enabled circularity, this includes the REC peer-to-peer trading platform. It means that the users and the producers can be connected. And another point is to promote the R&D on green data center. We have another question in the Mentimeter. So, which of the below items, in your opinion, need to be prioritized for EECO, Circularity Investment Promotion Strategy for green data centers?
มีต่อมา3ท่านนะฮะก็คือการสนับสนุนทางด้าน subsidy นะครับ
So we have 3 respondents, and we have the support on the subsidization and guidelines for green data center and financial mechanisms. And the products and instruments from financial institutes may be soft loans or green loans or sustainability linked loan.
จะเป็น2ประเด็นนี้ซึ่งเข้าใจว่าน่าจะคิดเหมือนกันกับเราก็คือว่าเนี่ยมันใช้เงินลงทุนน่าจะมากกว่าตัว data center ปกติ
And I think this reflects with our study results that the green data centers will use more investment. And secondary choices here Maybe the government can play a role to facilitate collaborations between data centers and energy companies.
โอเคครับทีนี้เนี่ยเรามาถึงตัว action plan นะครับจากภาพกลยุทธ์เมื่อกี้นะครับ
Now let's look at the action plan.
เราก็จะมาลงในรายละเอียดของว่า action อะไรที่เรา
So we'll have a look at the action plans, what we have in mind for the next phase. Like this morning, we will divide the action plan into 3 different phases. Each phase consists of around 1 year. So the first action is on the technological support. You can see the bright color, which signifies the high priority that it needs to be done, and done even in a short-term period. The first one is the technical support on the concept of the efficient energy use in the data center industry. And this might include the use of renewable energy. We can extend this to the energy audit process in the data centers, including benchmarking and recommendations to the industry as a whole, and this might have to be collaborated with the Ministry of Energy.
ในมุมของการส่งเสริมให้มีการวิจัยและพัฒนาในภาคของ Green Data Center.
The second point is to promote R&D on green data center. This support includes the funding for R&D, as well as the partnership between the data centers and academic sector. And as I understand, the DEPA or NSTDA are the potential partners here. The next topic is the financial instruments and verification process. We might have the new products from the financial sector to attract new investors with their soft loan, but we need also the criteria that what are the requirements to be met from the financial institutes. After that, we need a clear verification process, and the Ministry of Energy can specify what green data centers mean. And based on that definition, we can use that to perform due diligence so that the banks or the financial institutions can decide whether they will give the soft loans or not. Next is the peer-to-peer trading system, as I have mentioned already. This is the mechanism to connect the renewable user and renewable energy provider can be connected, and this will create more options for renewable energy, and PEA, Provincial Electric Authority, will be the good facilitator for this process. And next one is the green data center standards and the regulatory framework and practice guide that will need to be set up in the future, and this will be about 1 to 2 years from now on in the phase 2. So the specification has to be clear, or the expectation of the PUE of the data center where it has to be met. For example, in Singapore, they have a lot of data centers, and this is the enforcement from the government that they should have the limit of the PUE at how much. And this will drive the operators to use energy efficiently. And renewable energy certificate will be another option. If the sources of renewable energy in the local area is not enough, we can use this to maybe not carbon credit, but the credit on the renewable energy to compensate and offset with energy use. And last but not least, the measures to subsidize from the government sector, maybe incentive or tax rebates to attract more investment in green data centers. And this is the phase 3, and the real last one here is the human capital. This is a joint research and partnership with universities and research institutes to create the capacity development program in the green data center industry to understand the key concept and knowledge and more awareness. Green data centers, after conducting the interview with the stakeholders, one of the highlights is the personnel in this industry. And since this industry lacks skilled labor, and if this continues, it will affect the growth of this sector. Last but not least, again, this is the network and partnership between data centers and EECO. For example, the matchmaking for business and exchange of best practices and experiences, how to efficiently use energy in the industry.
Okay. ถัดมาครับมี Menti
So now we proceed on to another Menti question. So I would like you to help us rank the priority of the action plan. Which one should be more important, or which one has the most significance to these green data centers based on priority? So the first one here, we can see that it's the technical support on energy management framework.
Okay. มาเพิ่มแล้วผมก็ว่าทำไมมีแค่2
All right, I was wondering why we have only 2 just now. Here we have 5 of the items, and the top priorities are, of course, subsidy policy to promote green data center from financial institutions. And the second one is the RECs, or Enable Renewable Energy Certificates, which can be extended to the certification or the issuance of RECs more in the future. And number 3 is about the green data center standards and regulatory framework and practice guide. Here we can see changes in the ranking now. So we divide into different groups. Next one, we look at the human capacity action plans. And the first one is, of course, joint research program or partnership. And also the second one is a capacity development program. So this question is asking, next one, please. Can you proceed to next slide, please? All right. So this is a case study or example from studying from Supermicro, which is a global technology leader who studied green data centers and normal data centers. Why do we have to have green data center? So when you compare the two, it is found that green data center has higher energy consumption efficiency, and so it helps to reduce costs to $470,000, and it also helps to refresh cycle savings, and also the total cost to the environment, or TCE savings. You can quantify and see that green data centers help to save over $1.4 million and also 12 tons of e-waste.
โอเคทีนี้
And these are the project examples from the EU, European Union. You can see here the first case we study is Google's. So Google has started investing in digital infrastructure in Europe, such as data centers and fiber assets in many areas in Europe. And so Google has built or has contributed to EU GDP of European Union for about 5.4 billion euro over the period of 2007 to 2017. It helps to create 6,600 jobs per year on average. And also wherever they are, they help to create positive impact on local communities, including knowledge spillovers, signaling effects, skills building, and contributions to local educational institutions. And also, Google has also provided support on investment on renewable energy. They have contributed as PPA agreements with renewable power plants. And because this industry can truly create many crucial benefits to the local economy, it also helps to show that the policy from the EU governments, you can see that they have established even more policies to support this movement, including infrastructure that leads or facilitate the establishment of green data centers. They make it easy and more convenient for companies such as Google to operate. They find it easy to conduct businesses in that area, and also ensure training in order to improve the locals' capacity, helping to equip them with the skills and also the abilities that are relevant to these green data centers operation. And also it helps with the national policies, highlighting renewable energy supply, more renewable energy supply in order to attract data center industries or investments from other countries, because they would like to gain benefits from those investments. And they also look at the digital skills, seeing the skills that they can help to foster in that particular region. And they also look at the EU policies. I'm not going to touch on that too much. And you can see that they focus primarily on making it easy for businesses to operate in order to attract investments. And it helps to foster the future's skills, helps equipping people with relevant skills and also with renewable energy sources. So this image shows the policy framework of the green data center. So the first topic is we need to have the clean energy for green data centers. So that covers the aspect of providing technical knowledge, talking about energy efficiency, renewable energy, and also offsetting scheme, for example, the RECs. And the second one is green data center must be properly designed. So the policy must be in accordance with that. We need to have guidance of how to establish, how to renovate data centers to make it greener. And it's also about partnering with between green data centers and other players, or you can partner with academic institutions as well.
โอเคจบเรื่องของตัว Green Data Center
I think that concludes the green data center. Are there any questions up until this point?
โอเคงั้นเดี๋ยวผมไปหัวข้อถัดไปต่อ
So if there are no questions, let's move on to the sixth hotspot, that is waste management.
เรื่องของ Waste Management เนี่ย
So when we talk about waste management, you can see there are two sides to this. We divide into medical, hazardous, and single-use plastics waste. And on the right, you can see we have the e-waste.
เขาจะโฟกัสไปในเรื่องของการ
So on the left-hand side, they focused on best practices in order to reduce the quantity of these wastes and promote the classifications of waste and to segregate waste and also to develop systems to help with waste segregation and also waste management. And when it comes to policy, we also try to build a comprehensive system and to create more awareness among those who produce waste. When it comes to the e-waste side, you can see it's more related to electronic products. How do you design it in order for it to be reused in the future and in order to make it safe for recycle in the future, and also to create schemes or campaigns to provide support so manufacturers or producers can buy back their products and to support closed loop production, and also helps with the maintenance, refurbishing, and repairing to extend their shelf life or the duration of use, and also to promote reverse logistics as well. So just to give you a summary on this circular hotspot number 6, and I mentioned e-waste just now. E-waste is generated from the data center industry. And my question is, how can we recycle that? Are there ways for us to do urban mining? Can we recycle those minerals that we have extracted and bring it back to the loop? And we also consider bio waste as well. I think it's all about proper waste management. On the right-hand side is the process to manage waste in Munich, Germany. So you can see that they have created facilities comprehensively, starting from curbside collection, helping with the logistics of waste, building facilities to promote recycle, and also building incinerator and also waste disposal area. So I think we can see the partnership between the private and public sectors here in order to create like a closed loop or a proper waste management loop. And they also focuses more on prevention rather than waste disposal. So when we look at Thailand, when we talk about waste management, you can see it's like on the medium level, which means that there are things we have already done over all these years. And when it comes to process, you can see that it's in red, which means we still lack. Like we may have policies, we may have the process, but these policies or processes that we have designed, maybe it fails to integrate circular economic principles, and that means it's about recycling and waste disposal rather than turning these waste into new products. And when we talk about infrastructure, we have seen some initiatives already in Thailand. For example, we have the Rayong waste model and a few flagship initiatives to establish the ecosystem for waste collection, treatment, and processing. We also have the business strategy. I think the private sector has many partnerships like SEGs, for example. They have launched initiatives or partnerships in order to promote waste management. And I think that is very it's something that everyone would like to be part of and contribute in order to promote it, so that we can see waste being brought back into the production loop or to create new products out of it. And so the partnership model among the private companies, I think we have to learn more from them in order to build on that and to promote public-private partnership rather than just within the private sector itself. And in urban mining is another thing that we have to focus on, especially for Thailand, because there will be more electronic waste. So if we can prepare some sort of technology to deal with urban mining, I think it will help us to reduce the import of metals or rare earth minerals from abroad. And last one on socio-cultural aspect. I think our culture, Thailand has been learning about waste, and then we have been very active in trying to promote recycling, but I think that we still need to work on infrastructure or to integrate circular economy in the way that we manage waste in our country.
Okay. เมนติมีคำถามเมนติมีเดี๋ยวคำถามผมค่อยตอบตอนสุดท้ายนะครับส่วนเมนตินี่อาจจะ
So we have the mentee questions, and it's asking, in your opinion, what are the key obstacles for promoting waste management in Thailand?
ตอนนี้จะเป็นเรื่องของecosystem.
So I think like the prominent one is the ecosystem. It's about collection, treatment, and processing of waste. And now I think you can see the rankings being changed. Policies have gained prominence here too when it comes to difficult waste streams. So these are the key obstacles according to our respondents. Another point is the policy and regulatory provisions. You can still see that it still acts as a limitation to recycling or things like urban mining. Maybe we don't have the technology that will enable that to happen yet. And it's also private-public partnership. We still do not see that as important.
Okay. Okay ฮะทีนี้เนี่ย
So when we look at the EECO circularity investment promotion strategy, I think it's about adjusting the policy, the regulatory provisions to make sure that waste can flow from upstream to downstream, meaning people should be able to remanufacture waste. And there might be some guidelines needed to be launched or disseminated in order to make people aware of what to do as best practices. And the business model, I can see that there should be some products, especially when it comes to redesigning products to make it consistent with the concept of circularity, and also to expand the value chain of the business to make sure that it synchronizes from collectors to recyclers to people who reutilize waste or to bring it to the next loop. And also when it comes to collaboration, I think it's about providing financial support in order to create innovative solutions for waste management businesses, and also to raise awareness of stakeholders from every sector, be it from the manufacturers, businesses, and also customers, and also take enable circularity. Say we need to be able to measure waste and monitor that we have to have the monitoring platform in order to reduce waste creation or generation, and also to bring waste back to the loop so that it can be recycled, and also to create waste-free trade platform so that people know how to connect waste producers with customers willing to pay for it. The next question on the Mentimeter. So from your opinion, which of the below items need to be prioritized for EECO circularity investment promotion strategy for waste management?
So
we can see here that promoting circular ecosystem by adjusting laws related to waste management to make it more synchronized and consistent from upstream to downstream, and also granting financial and incubation support for innovative solutions for waste management businesses, and also the waste-free trade platform. These are the three key items for the waste management. And let's look at our study. So we have laid it out on the action plans, of course. So the first thing is the priority for us in the next phase is to create waste management guideline for businesses. So how do we integrate sustainable waste management practices in the businesses so that we minimize the generation of waste and to make sure that products that are manufactured can go back into a circular loop? And the next thing is to provide innovations between upstream and downstream by focusing on business models that aim to redesign products, remanufacturing, and refurbishing materials to help keep most of the value of products. So we're trying to optimize the raw materials here. And policy and regulatory enabler. These are just examples. Of course, there might be some overlappings between acts and the collection of fees for waste recycling, waste collection. So maybe we can try to introduce some sort of rebate plans, or to provide incentives for more recycling, to reduce landfill as a method of waste disposal. I think that would be great. And also to provide financial support to promote more innovative solutions and to build more, body of knowledge and new innovations, maybe from financial institutions. For example, introducing some bond scheme, which can help to reduce waste or maybe utilize waste. And then to promote awareness campaign. So food waste, for example, maybe we can emphasize more on tourism sectors as well. So you can see it's from the Tourism Authority of Thailand, TCEP. I think these are key organizations that can help with awareness raising campaign. And also the next thing is digital platform. We should use digital platform to help us track waste and help us to manage waste more proficiently. And so we can probably help to identify opportunities to make use of waste. In Thailand, these digital platforms or databases are still not as comprehensive as we want to see and not as connected. And last one is the collaboration between different associations related to waste recycling. I think it's about collaboration to support the use of waste to turn them into secondary materials. Say, for example, food waste can be used in raw materials in animal feeds, but you also need more studies on this area.
Okay.
All right. Next, we'll move on to Menti questions on waste. So in your opinion, can you rank the action plans for waste management based on priority from high to low? So first one on the rank is policy and regulatory enabler. And the second one on the rank is the digital platform to track waste and to have a digital platform that will integrate data to help with management of the waste.
Okay. Okay ครับก่อนที่จะไปตัวเคส
So before we move on to the case study, I will proceed to the Q&A.
There are two questions that maybe you can help me also. First one is e-waste related to the product design might not be relevant to Thailand because the design might happen in Japan, Korea, or China. And what we can do in Thailand is to enforce on the regulation to prohibit it, to prohibit or to prohibit the import of those product or prohibit the manufacturer if that product cannot be recycled or reused. So it means that we cannot interfere the design because it's happened from other country.
Yeah, so I think in e-waste terms, it's correct. So already Thailand is implementing regulations to banning any import of e-waste. So that's already in place. I think 2018, as of 2018, all imports of e-waste has been banned into Thailand. However, I think from a circularity standpoint, the internal domestic production of e-waste is pretty high. From the electronics industry, from the digital industry, as Thailand is moving towards the EV sector, which is electric vehicles, the batteries will also contribute to the e-waste. So while the suggestion is absolutely correct, I think we are also recommending to create a secondary market through e-waste, which is called urban mining. And there is a lot of investments, global investments going into what is called urban mining. So what that means is that the existing flow of consumer goods and electric vehicles, which leads to generation of e-waste, should be diverted into very structured mainstream channels for extracting primary metals, right, like nickel, copper, aluminium, thereby reducing the virgin mining of these materials and putting it back into the electronics life cycle and the digital life cycle. So that is one. Second would be connecting this to the waste management sector in a way that it is managed in an environmentally friendly manner, social labor is taken care of. So those are the two recommendations we are giving, of course, with the more stringent regulation on banning of any import of e-waste.
Yeah, okay. And also, I think for those product design and produced in Thailand, it's like Thai product. We can intervene on that in terms of helping with the
Yes,
design.
so
yeah.
design will be critical. So for example, as the EV sector is growing, batteries will grow. And the battery life cycle, like Julia talked about in her session, that extending the life of batteries and reducing the waste through the end of the battery life cycle is important. So the digital sector, particularly through data centers, robotics industry, they need to incorporate the design extension, the end of life design extension. So on one hand, e-waste generation goes down, the end of life is extended, and whatever is the domestic volume, that is taken care through urban mining.
Okay, okay. Thank you. And the other one, and the other question is that when we talk about hazardous waste, not sure that what we talk is related to the waste from community or the hazardous waste from factory, because the restriction or the regulation is totally different.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So we have considered both. However, the hazardous waste as an impact on Thailand has gone up significantly during the last 2 years because of COVID. So a lot of the waste stream in the hazardous is now because of the medical, hospitals, and the related industries. So that is one of the biggest challenges right now for Thailand. But when we talk about hazardous waste generation, it is more industrial focused, because the municipal, I would say, contribution of hazardous waste is much lower than what comes from industry or the medical or the services sector.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And I agree that because the waste from the factory, especially hazardous waste, they've got a very mature regulation in place
Yes,
in terms
yeah.
of implementation. But
Yes.
for this sector, it's a different story.
Yeah, but because of COVID in the last 2 years, what has happened is that the hazardous waste has moved its value chain from being constrained in the industry to actually landing up in the landfill. So now the public municipal areas are also getting the the hazardous waste volumes increase. So that is where a more stringent circular policy around waste management is required, which includes hazardous, medical, and the services and medical sector as well.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Rati. โอเคครับทีนี้มาในภาพของตัวอย่างนะครับของ
So looking at
โอเคอันนี้เป็นตัว project example
the project examples
ยกตัวอย่างของญี่ปุ่นมา
from Japan,
Eco Town ซึ่งมันจะ
where they have launched the Eco Town program in Japan. So I think it shows us the support from the public sector. So you can see that the Ministry of Economics and Ministry of Environment work together to provide support on subsidies, on the launch of the Eco Town Plan program. So they support on hardware, including different projects, recycling, recovering, and they also provide support on software, including guidelines or facilitate communications between different players, and also the private sector and the local public sector, say municipal levels, they also work together, and also the people's sector also contribute in this as well, because they are the people who receive the messages, right? So they don't just do this in just one town. So you can see from here, they conduct this program in different towns. So they have defined the roles of stakeholders, be it the laws and legislations, policy and strategy, finance. So each stakeholders, how are they related, and how does it help to understand their roles? And they also look at the benefits which lead to the 3R industries. So it shows different initiatives being conducted in the national level in Japan. And also at the local public sector, they also help to improve the environment in the local areas and also to promote and enhance the skills of the local staffs and also contribute to the local economy. And they also receive economic benefits from this as well. They have received the government's support, and they know that it will not lead them to losses for the businesses. And also it helps with the images of the company and also boost knowledge sharing and education promotion. So these eco towns program have resulted in benefits in different aspects. Now at the policy roadmap, we summarize this into material availability. So I think it's about focus on enhancing materials availability and bridging the gap between supply and demand. So we need to see that there is a procedure in place to manage waste and to reduce the opportunities for these waste to end up in the landfill, and also to promote the use of recycled goods or products. In the middle box here is the value chain integration. So we are trying to promote more partnership or participation from the stakeholders. And the last one is to diversify industrial use. So diversifying industrial use in new productions in order to introduce new products to the market. So before we move on to the last one, renewable energy, are there any questions at this point?
Okay. งั้นเดี๋ยวเราไปเรื่องของตัว renewable energy นะฮะสุดท้ายนะครับ
So we'll move to the last hotspot, which is the renewable energy. And as I said, that this renewable energy is connected to all of the industries. Thailand has declared at COP26 that we will achieve the carbon neutrality by 2050 and net zero emission in 2065. In this will bring a lot of demand in renewable energy. And renewable energy will connect with the high energy consumption industries, for example, the data centers under the service industry or hospitals. And hospitality and hotel industry. So in tourism and healthcare, their main energy use will be the ventilation system in the buildings. In the digital sector, energy is used more and more, and with a forecast, the situation in the global perspective in 2019 is about 50 terawatt per hour. And in the smart mobility sector from Kun Yulia, there is a forecast that the EVs will be in demand. And so the energy to be used in EV will be in a trend that needs to be renewable energy source. So the global trend of renewable energy that we have concluded from this study, it has high costs to implement. Another factor is the utility infrastructure, the grid line, the and also what are the obstacles to draw new investors into the country. And the policy may not be proactive, and the technology that will improve the energy efficiency might not be there. Now let's look at the gap assessment in Thailand. We have a lot of policy. This includes the tax mechanisms and the rebates to support this, but it might focus on the issue is the application of the policy, especially on the international companies. The missing piece of the process is the PR and branding and promotion, so that the feed-in tariff is more adopted in Thailand. And the authorization process in the energy sector is quite complicated, and this will be the main barrier for new investments. For infrastructure, if you remember Kunrati's session, the bio-based sector has a mature infrastructure, but these processes need to be expanded into other industries. For business strategy, I think we have little gap because we have the AEDP plan. And when it comes to partnerships, we focus on the expansion to the private sector to enter the renewable energy market. For technology, you will see that it is marked in red because the gaps are quite large. This may have to do with costs of the renewable energy, that the production is quite high compared to conventional costs. And so there's no incentive for the operators or the providers to move to renewable energy. In the sociocultural aspect, there is a lot of considerable gaps to adopt renewable energy. Now, Mentimeter once more. So what do you think are the key obstacles for promoting renewable energy in Thailand? So the first one is the complicated process to receive permits for renewable energy. And the second place is to adopt the policy, the existing policy. We see only on a small number of businesses. And this actually aligns with the action plan that we generate on the processes. This is the feedback that we receive from the stakeholder interview. A lot of people also mention the complicated process, and maybe the EEC can simplify the process in your area.
Okay. ทีนี้เรามองในภาพของตัว
For the strategy on renewable energy, under the first pillar, the design for circularity, we think that renewable energy certificate will be a crucial means to increase the proportion of renewable energy in EEC area. And the permitting procedures and government processes. A lot of people in the interview mentioned about the concept of one-stop service that will reduce and simplify the permitting procedures and support investment. So the REC will greatly support the RE that the investors will have an interest. And peer-to-peer trading, this is what we talked about in other hotspots already. If we have a platform that people can trade among one another, I think the EEC can be a space for that. The collaboration, this will have to do with the PEA, Provincial Electricity Authority, for the grid capacity in each location. This will link the tech-enabled circularity at the end. Maybe the GIS technology can be used to analyze the location of renewable energy in line with the town planning, with the market demand, and maybe the weather conditions also. These are the 4 pillars that we consider. And I think all of this, we believe that this will attract more investment into the EEC area. So which item needs to be prioritized for EECO for renewable energy? So the top items here is the permitting process and financial instruments from financial institutions, and it can come in forms of soft loans and others. So I think we have a lot of draws here. So one-stop service simplify is quite high. Peer-to-peer trading again. And what nobody talks about here is the renewable energy certificate. Maybe perhaps you think is the following step, but not the next one. And the hydrogen economy is, what is overlooked by people. It might be the next priority in the future. And this aligns with the action plan that we prepare. The first one, we think this is the guidelines for the renewable energy project development. This includes the permitting procedures, financial instrument. If we have these guidelines, I think the investors will have more confidence to develop the EEC area. And we can have seminars and workshops to communicate these guidelines for the short-term actions. The next one is financial instrument. This is also one of the high priorities. Based on your feedback also, the financial instrument can come from financial institution, or maybe the BOI or the EEC can come into play, or the Customs Department for renewable energy.
มากขึ้นแล้วทำให้ตัวโครงการของเขาเนี่ยมีความคุ้มทุนมากขึ้นนะฮะ
And if it can be organized in the matchmaking for businesses, that will support the investment as well. And for the peer-to-peer trading, we think that this will be in the medium term,
มีสกีมในเรื่องของ peer-to-peer
but we still need to have a peer-to-peer trading scheme, especially within the EEC area.
แล้วก็ตัวการวางแผนในมุมของพื้นที่นะครับก็จะอยู่ในประมาณกลางๆหรือ
And spatial planning will be about the medium or long-term action.
ทีนี้ตัว ecosystem นะครับของpartner กับ supplier ในการที่จะ
The ecosystem of partners and suppliers to promote the advanced technology.
จะอยู่ในระดับประมาณกลาง medium ถึง long
This belongs to the medium or long terms.
ให้ตัว partner เนี่ยกับตัว supplier เนี่ยเขามีการทำงานร่วมกันมีการร่วมมือกันนะครับใน
But the purpose is to create a partnership between partners and suppliers,
แล้วก็ practical ในการที่จะมาลงทุนตัว renewable energy ใน
which will result in more investment in renewable energy in EEC.
โอเคโอเคฮะตัว action plan ตรงนี้ที่เรามองที่ทางผู้เข้าร่วมประชุมมองเนี่ยก็คือว่าตัว financial instrument นะครับแล้วก็ ecosystem
So this is the ranking of the action plan
สามารถทำให้ partner กับ supplier เนี่ยเขาสามารถมาร่วมมือกันได้นะครับแล้วก็ตัว guideline
to unlock the collaboration between the partners and the suppliers. So we plan that the financial instrument development is high priority definitely
ผู้นักลงทุนเขาจะมาลงทุนเหมือนกัน
and affects the possibility of investment.
โอเคครับสุดท้ายนะครับตัว enabler นะครับที่สำหรับในภาคอุตสาหกรรม service
Last part is the
สรุปออกมานะครับว่า
key enablers of circular economy investment for renewable energy.
ว่าเรื่องของ renewable energy เนี่ยตัวที่เป็นตัวที่จะปลดล็อกหรือเป็นตัวที่มี
So the key is like what will unlock this industry. The first one is the policy.
ด้านการจัดการพลังงานในกลุ่มอุตสาหกรรม data center นะครับแล้วก็ตัว
We need the technical support to the data centers in energy management.
data center นะครับตัวเรื่องข้อกำหนด
This includes the design of the green data centers.
ไม่มีความทับซ้อนกันในเรื่องของการจัดการของเสียนะครับแล้วก็ถ้าในมุม partnership ก็
In terms of partnership, this is between the data centers and energy companies and the stakeholders through the entire value chain.
กระบวนการตัว process เนี่ยก็
The process,
ตัว permitting process
we focus on the permitting processes that needs to reduce its
centralize ตัว service
complexity,
service ในพื้นที่ EEC
or we might even create a one-stop service in the area of EEC.
อุปกรณ์ทางการแพทย์เนี่ยสามารถ
And if the medical equipments can be recycled in these processes, that would be another goal.
นะครับแล้วก็ถ้าเป็นตัว business strategy
The business strategy includes the
การ
collaborative waste management solution
สมาคมที่มี
through the associations
waste นะครับแล้วก็มี
with waste recycling and
นะครับตัว
material recovery.
ก็จะเป็นตัว digital knowledge และ skill ต่างๆ เพื่อที่จะ supply คนให้เพียงพอกับอุตสาหกรรม data center นะครับ
For infrastructure, we have to develop the technical and digital knowledge and skills.
นะครับแล้วก็
In waste management, in socioculture, is the awareness of public.
การจัดการ
In waste separation, collection, reduction. For technology innovation,
ตัวปริมาณ waste
is the digital platform to measure and track waste across the value chain and supports the upstream and downstream innovations to reuse, recover materials from waste. And the last one is the enable use of REC or renewable certificate.
พัฒนาตัวโครงการทางด้าน
to develop more renewable energy projects.
โอเคฮะไฮไลท์นี้ก็ผมอาจจะสรุปคร่าวๆนะครับว่าตั้งแต่เช้ามาจนถึง
So right now, I will provide you with a quick summary of the 7 hotspots, starting from the bio-based industry, from feedstocks, from bio-waste, and that is to ensure that feedstocks that we will supply to the supply chain is enough, is sufficient, and also to valorize residues from agricultural waste, and that is bio-based industry. And the second one is the manufacturing sector. So that is about creating the value chain from upstream to downstream in Thailand and to make it more integrative. And also the MRO industry, where we are trying to promote that industry, especially in aviation industry. And then we have also discussed the green data centers and waste management, especially electronic waste or wastes from tourism sector, medical sector, and also e-waste. And also, we have also talked about renewable energy. And hopefully, what we have presented to you since the morning session can provide you with some sort of an overview of how EEC plans to progress. So we try to use circular economy principles to attract more investment on top of the policies and strategies that are already in place from the EEC. So thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, this is all from the experts from ERM, and that should be beneficial for every stakeholders involved in the EEC so that we can better prepare for the near future. And all this is to drive forward sustainability in our country. Next one.
สำนักงานคณะกรรมการเขตพัฒนาพิเศษภาคตะวันออกให้เกียรติกล่าวปิดงานในวันนี้ค่ะเรียนเชิญค่ะ
May I have the honor of Mr. Angsuthorn Wasusan. He's the Deputy Director of Investment Strategy and Promotion Department, or EECO. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you all the participants, for both online and on-site participants. On behalf of EEC, I would like to just give a quick recap, just to say that EEC has the primary goal to be the net zero emission zone. And that is the goal that we are trying to stay consistent with the national carbon neutrality plan in Thailand. And we have a plan to reduce 10% from 2021. And we try to implement green and circular economy to be part of our strategy. So primarily, the AEC have set up 2 goals. First, we focused on energy consumption efficiency and production, and also the resource management, including waste management, in order to bring it back into production loop. And these are the 2 key focus areas that we try to define our strategy based on. And to develop action plans this time, we are trying to develop a framework to promote investment in green and circular economy in accordance with EEC's goals. But we think that the targeted industries are connected in clusters throughout the production or supply chain. So there are 12 target industries together. And so in order to implement the concepts and ideas behind circular and green economy, we are trying to drive forward our sustainability goals in order to attract more investors and to promote investment inside our country, and also to create the ecosystem that will facilitate more investment and more development in this area. And there are 4 groups of ways we can work in order to drive forward our efforts. First is to design business so that it is in consistency with the plans and the goals. Second, to create the investment plan so that it is in accordance with that. And so to create a supply chain that will support the circular economy principles. And the fourth one is also to look at it from the comprehensive view. So you can see that in creating these action plans, we have consistently developed and reviewed our plan, and so throughout all the phases. So you can see that in order to promote circular economy in Thailand and especially in the EEC zone, I think we have to look at it not just as an EEC on its own, but also as a national level because it's related to the regional issues. So when we create the action plans, it should not just be specific to EEC alone. I think it is important to drive forward integration of both the private and the public sectors in order to create the suitable ecosystem and also to develop partnerships between each other, collaborations, and to create this holistic collaboration between all these relevant sectors from both the private, the people's, and the public sectors. They are all important to the design of these action plans. And next, we're going to collect the feedbacks collected from all these and ideas and in order to refine our action plans. So thank you very much for your feedbacks, for your surveys. And we will also bring these feedbacks and to bring these action plans to create this framework for budgeting within the capacity of EEC, and we will have to ask for the relevant agencies to help us create activities that will introduce these ideas of circular economy to relevant organizations in the EEC. And so thank you very much all the participants both on site and online. Hopefully, we fervently hope that we will receive your participation in the future as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ang Suthorn Wasusan from the EECO. And last but not least, before we wrap up for the day, may I ask for your kind cooperation both from our participants online and on site to fill out the evaluation form. So I think you can see there is a QR code shown to you on screen. Please scan and also provide us with feedbacks so that we can better improve our events next time. And if any of you would like access to our presentation slides or PowerPoints, we will send them to you after the event today. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation. Thank you the speakers. Thank you distinguished guests who have been with us from the morning up until now. And thank you very much for every questions from you. It's very, very useful to us. Your feedbacks are very, very important to us so that we can better improve our capacity in the future. So hopefully the EECO and ERM will get to present information of their projects and progress to you again in the future. That's it for me today, Shasha, as a moderator today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So don't forget to scan the QR code and fill out the evaluation form. Thank you very much. Have a safe trip home. And thank you participants from Zoom. สวัสดีค่ะ